It's the Morning Sports Report, TribLIVE radio style. Ken Laird, Guy Junker, and Guy, we've got a guest in our midst, Steelers writer Chris Adamski. So I've got a 5-pack of Steelers True-False off the Mike Tomlin media avails yesterday. You ready to go? I want you involved.
True, false, true, false.
Okay, wrong, all 5. Chris, let's start with this one. Mike Tomlin is confident his corner play will be above the line this year. True or false?
I was told there'd be no quiz this morning. I didn't realize there'd be a pop quiz when I showed up today. Well, man, it's either or, huh? You want one-word answer. You want this rapid fire, don't you? How do you define above the line? Has it been above the line? When's the last time it was above the line?
It was below the line last year in terms of 18th in the league in points allowed, right? That's below the line. Will it improve?
No. False.
Okay, wrong. Maybe it should be right or wrong, Guy.
Right.
Instead of true or false.
No, right, wrong, true, false. This is going really well so far.
Is Tomlin whistling past the graveyard, Guy?
Yes.
Says that. Yeah.
Well,
how can he not be?
And what is he going to say? I mean, I don't know how the question was phrased to him, but he has to answer it that way. He's not going to say, you know what, Antoine Blake's not very good, and right now he's one of our top 2 corners. They don't know who they're going to be able to draft. There's still the free agency market isn't closed. People are already putting out their grades and their evaluations and stuff, and I still expect the Steelers to bring in somebody like they did last year on this time, and Bryce McCain became a serviceable and earned himself a decent little contract by his play here this past year. So it's not a finished product by any means. If one of the top corners falls to them, or they're able to get even somebody, even if somebody that doesn't have to fall to them at their position, and they draft him and he has a good camp and everything, then they could be okay. But I do not expect it to be one of the better secondaries in the league or the conference, or even, frankly, in the division.
But if you think about him, how's he going to answer it? If he criticizes says we weren't very good last year, that's a negative, and you don't want to point fingers there. If you talk about, if his deep down feelings that he reveals to the dog when he's sitting by the fireplace at night, he'd say, what the hell are we going to do this year? We weren't very good last year, and we've lost guys and haven't added anybody. He doesn't want to make it sound like he's disappointed in what Kevin Colbert's been able to accomplish this year, or to talk down on the guys that are currently on the roster. So, we always want truth and great quotes from Guy, but at times, it is understandable when they toe the company line, and I think it's pretty easy to read right through this.
That's why we need you guys to read the BS. True or BS from Mike Tomlin? His offense will be one of the very best in the league next year. Chris?
I'm on board with that one. True, correct, yes. Whatever answer you want to give, yes, I'm with that. It was less past year, and pretty much everybody's back, and there's not as if there's anybody who's past their prime really at all. The whole up and down. Ben's the oldest, and I guess you could say that Heath Miller's on his way down. But other than that, I think everybody else is still, the arrow is still pointing up, to use another Mike Tomlinism, on everybody in the entire offense, and it's all back, and it's one of the best offenses in the league last year. So yes, I'm fully on board with that.
Yeah, I think there's room for guys like Martavis Bryant to even get better and become a bigger part of the offense. Ben's in his prime with a brand new contract, the first Steeler quarterback ever to lead the league in yardage thrown, even though he tied, which seems almost impossible after 16 games to have the exact same amount of yardage as another guy. But I don't see any reason to think that they can't come close to duplicating what they did last year. Maybe a little less, maybe a little more.
Mike Tomlin called the 4-3 and 3-4 terminology on defense obsolete. Is he right or wrong, Buzz?
It's not obsolete. I get what he's saying, and I understand. I think people are a little bit too hyper-fixated on it in terms of what the Steelers are going to play, and now with so much sub-packaging, and you'll see many teams will use quote-unquote a 3-4 and a 4-3 in the same game or the same drive for that matter. However, there still are – it's going to affect your drafting, the type of body types, the type of personnel that you bring in, the type of free agents you bring in. What your base defense is still going to be affected by that. An edge rusher and a 3-4, an edge rusher and a 4-3 are two different types of players. So we'll find out, I guess, depending on who they bring in. If they bring in more of a 3-4 type end, which they're going to bring in somebody to play the position. We know that, whether it's the draft or free agency, and probably both. Some extra bodies are being brought in. I promise you that some are of some repute. We'll see what they are. But so it's not obsolete, but I get what it's maybe trending toward obsolete.
Well, I think that you are in your base defense now probably less than you've ever been in football history. I mean, we talk about having a dominating nose tackle to make a 3-4 defense work, and then the guy comes out after first down and sometimes doesn't come back until it's first down again. So I think there is some truth in it, but Chris is exactly right. You will determine your personnel based on what that base defense is. So I still think it's a worthwhile part of the discussion, even if you're only in it a third to a fourth of the time that you're actually out there.
So that's 2 BSs from Tomlin, 1 true. We're on the BS meter. Let's go number 4.
Which for an NFL head coach is pretty honest.
The Steelers, this maybe is beyond Mike Tomlin, but they've requested the league to keep them on the West Coast for both the San Diego and Seattle trips. Is Tomlin, if this is the head coach behind it, is it a good idea? Let's put it that way, to stay on the West Coast for 2 weeks. And do they deserve that right from the NFL this year?
Well, in a league that sends teams to London to play, I don't think there's anything wrong with asking for it. I don't think they should be mad if they don't get it. I don't know if this is a regular thing that other teams. I know the Steelers. I remember one time, I want to say when Cowher was coach, they stayed out there for a whole week playing. I think San Diego and the 49. I can't remember. I mean, it's been done before, whether it was by accident or by request. But I don't expect them to, in a league where teams play Sunday night and then have to play again Thursday night. I don't know why they'd bend over backwards to make it easy for the Steelers.
And that's the main thing. Of course, you can't blame the Steelers for asking. Now, if you're in the NFL and you grant this request for the Steelers, and now especially that's been public, it's public knowledge now. Next year, when the Raiders ask for this scheduling perk or whatever team, X team asks to play whatever it might be, for 4 o'clock and 1 o'clock, the
well, you gave it to the Steelers,
exactly.
Right.
So I think it's a Pandora's box of allowing teams, and I get it. What does it really harm? They're playing the West Coast anyway. But once you grant one request for one team to make a schedule, all 32 teams are going to want. So we don't want to play a Thursday night game against this team. We don't want to play Sunday. Who knows what you could ask? And for all legitimate reasons, for all competitive advantages, and I get why the Steelers want to do it. I just think now that it's become public, I feel like it's less likely the NFL does it. Not just to screw the Steelers by any means, but because they know that if they start this precedent of granting these requests, then it's going to lead to who knows where.
I mean, think about the West Coast teams that have to make multiple East Coast trips every year. You look at every time the Chargers come here, they always put that stat up, what their record is when they play games in the Eastern time zone that start at 1 o'clock. It's terrible. So, if you're going to make there are a lot more teams in the East than all the way out in the Pacific time zones. If you're going to make a request to an Eastern team, well, then all the Western teams would start saying, hey, we got to make 9 trips back East this year. I want at least 2 of them for us to stay there for a week.
This may just be a Mark Cabali pressed agenda to get a week on the West Coast paid by Trib Total Media to cover both games. Let's go to Cabali for number 5 on our 5-pack of true and false. Cabali Buzz is reading between the lines that they're going to take a corner, and further evidence, Tomlin gushing about how deep the edge rusher crop is in this year's draft. Is Cabali correct in his radar that they'll take a corner for the first time in the first round since '97?
I think that's something that even the Steelers, I mean, there have been years, and I understand they're going to be targeting people, and every team does, but I think you have to let that play out. It's funny you say that because I
Cabali BS, you're calling BS.
I'm not calling. I think he can make the that they're maybe leaning that way. Maybe that is the way they can intend to do that. But I think once you get to that Thursday night, April 30th, who knows who comes off the board? Who knows who jumps who? Who knows who's still up there? I mean, we talked about before how David DeCastro fell in their lap. Is there some position we're not even thinking of where?
If you listen to them, everybody falls in their lap.
Well,
we
exactly.
never expected him. We're so thrilled with this guy. We thought he would have been taken with the -1 pick.